Sometimes life doesn't fall apart quietly. It shatters with the roar of fire and the weight of silence in its aftermath. When Rowan Hampton emerged from the ashes of her old life, she thought death had claimed her. She thought the flames that devoured her home and her mother had taken her with them. But instead of oblivion, she woke into something worse and far more dangerous. She didn't return to the world she knew. She woke in a place where shadows breathe, where secrets bleed, power, and where three men stood over her not as rescuers but as possessors of a truth. She never asked for. There was Jude, the coldest of the three, with a gaze like steel. Forged in fire, a man who seemed built from command and fury. There was Dominic, whose silence carried the weight of past sins, whose eyes saw more than they should. And then there was Levi, the smiling flirt with a devil. His grin, whose playful charm masked a storm within. All three were stunning, powerful, and bound to her in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Rowan had become more than a survivor. She was a key, a weapon, a bloodline reborn. Her veins carried magic that hadn't stirred in centuries. Magic. That these men had been waiting for, magic that changed everything. They didn't save her out of mercy. They saved her because she was needed. Her blood mattered. In her body slept an ancient force, and it had finally awakened. The bond she shared with the men wasn't just emotional, it was magical, primal binding. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something far more dangerous. A pact sealed not with words, but with power, with need, with blood. Jude, Dominic, and Levi hadn't chosen her by accident. They were tied to her fate as she was to theirs. The magic in. Her blood didn't only respond to them, it called to them, it grew stronger with them. And now together they faced a world that would see them either dead or ruling from a throne of fire. The supernatural underworld was not a place for the soft or the uncertain. It was a place of brutal politics, blood debts, ancient rivalries, and unforgiving rules. Rowan learned quickly that power was both gift and curse. That being special meant being hunted. That being bonded meant being owned. But Rowan was no passive piece on their chessboard. She was fire waiting to rise. Each day she became stronger. She felt the energy crackle beneath her skin, felt her senses sharpen. Her speed quicken, her instincts heighten. What began as fear turned to hunger for more, for control, for vengeance, for answers. Her power was no longer something that happened to her. It was hers to wield. And yet with power came danger. Jude's icy facade began to fracture beneath the heat of Rowan's presence. He wasn't just the enforcer, the soldier, the strategist. He was a man unraveling, slowly torn between the need to control and the urge to surrender. Dominic, the stoic guardian, carried scars from a past soaked in guilt. He would burn down the world to protect Rowan even if it destroyed him in the process. And Levi, the wild card, danced on the knife's edge between humor and heartbreak. Every smile he wore was a mask hiding pain that ran as deep as any wound. These weren't just allies. They were chaos and temptation and war. And Rowan felt it all. She was drawn to them, pulled into their orbit by something beyond understanding. Their touch sparked her power. Their presence grounded her even as it shook her to her core. The bond between them was becoming physical, visceral, impossible to ignore. And with it came the threat of losing herself entirely. But Rowan wasn't the only one changing. As she stepped deeper into this shadowed world, she uncovered truths that shattered every lie she'd ever known her mother had hidden. Her, for a reason, had erased an entire identity to protect her. There were factions in this world who feared Rowan as blood because they understood what she was. A born queen, a living weapon, a disruption to the order that had ruled the supernatural society for centuries. The Blood Pact wasn't just magic. It was prophecy. The more Rowan learned, the more the pieces fell into place, and the more the danger escalated. There were enemies watching, waiting, manipulating. Even among those who called themselves allies, there were whispers of betrayal and agendas she couldn't trust. Some wanted her power, some wanted her dead. Some wanted her bound to them forever, but Rowan refused to be anyone's pawn. As her powers grew, so did her will. She started to question everything, to push back against those who tried to control. Her Jude, Dominic, and Levi may have saved her life, but she would choose what to do with it. She wasn't afraid of them. She was becoming their equal. Her bond with the three deepened into something volatile and intimate. She came to understand their pain, their demons, their desire. She saw the cracks in their armor and chose to reach through the darkness to pull them toward her. She didn't need their protection. She needed their partnership. Together they could be unstoppable. But first they had to survive the storm that was coming, because something darker loomed beyond the political games and blood-soaked alliances. A power older than time itself was stirring, a force that had been waiting for Rowan to awaken, and now it had found her. The bond was only the beginning. She would have to fight not just for her own future, but for the fate of a world that didn't know it was already burning. She would have to claim the identity her mother tried to bury. She would have to become the queen fate had always meant her to be. She would have to lead a rebellion. Jude would have to let go of control and trust the woman he'd once thought too fragile. Dominic would have to confront the ghosts that haunted him and make peace with his own darkness. Levi would have to stop hiding behind jokes and face the agony that had shaped him. And Rowan would have to embrace the fire inside her. She had been born of flames. Now she would burn her enemies down. They called her a blood heir, a chosen one, a freak. She called herself free. No longer the girl who cowered behind fear. No longer the daughter hidden away. No longer the pawn in a game she didn't understand. Now she was a player. Now she was a power, and she was done running.